The November rain hammered against the bulletproof windows of the penthouse overlooking Central Park, each drop racing down the glass like tears the woman inside had long forgotten how to shed. Isabella Romano stood in the marble kitchen of their $40 million prison, stirring her coffee with mechanical precision as dawn broke over Manhattan's steel and concrete jungle. 7 years. 2,555 days of existing in the same space as a man who treated her like expensive furniture, beautiful, well-maintained, but never truly touched. Your schedule, Mrs. Romano. Maria, her assistant, placed the leather-bound planner on the white quartz counter. Another day mapped out in 15-minute increments. Charity lunch at the plaza, fitting at Bergdorf's, dinner alone while her husband conducted business in the underground network that made him one of the 5 family's most feared leaders. Isabella's fingers traced the gold band on her left hand, a 2-carat diamond that felt more like a shackle than a symbol of love. At 32, she had everything most women dreamed of: unlimited wealth, social standing, protection from a dangerous world, everything except the one thing money couldn't buy, the affection of the man she'd been sold to when she was 25. "Will Mr. Romano be joining you for breakfast?" Maria asked, already knowing the answer. "He left at 4. Isabella's voice was steady, practiced. Something about the shipment at Red Hook. The truth sat between them like a third presence. Dante Romano hadn't shared a bed with his wife in 7 years. Separate wings, separate lives, connected only by a marriage certificate signed in blood, literally. Her father's debt, paid with her hand. The old ways of the Italian families, still alive in modern America. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city wake up. Yellow cabs emerged like beetles in the grey morning. Somewhere down there in the network of streets and shadows, her husband was building an empire she was forbidden to truly know. She knew the surface: legitimate construction companies, restaurants, real estate. But beneath that veneer lay the real source of the Romano power: control of the Brooklyn docks, protection rackets, underground gambling operations that made millions untraceable dollars. Dante had been clear on their wedding night, his dark eyes cold as the November rain now falling. "This is a business arrangement, Isabella. Your father owed a debt. You've paid it by becoming my wife. I'll provide for you, protect you, and give you the Romano name, but don't mistake this for love. I don't have the luxury of love." And he'd kept his word with brutal honesty. For 7 years he'd never touched her beyond the necessary: a hand at the small of her back at public events, a chaste kiss on the forehead when cameras demanded it. They existed in parallel universes, 2 strangers sharing an address. The penthouse phone rang, the private line. Only 5 people had the number. "Mrs. Romano, there's been an incident." "Vincent," Dante's consigliere, his voice tight. "Nothing that concerns you directly, but there will be increased security. Stay inside today, cancel your appointments." "What happened?" "The boss will brief you when he returns. Just stay put." The line went dead. Isabella's heart rate increased, the first real emotion she'd felt in months. In 7 years, she'd learned to read the temperature of her husband's world through these small signals. Incident meant violence. Increased security meant war. And being told to stay inside meant whatever happened was close to home. She'd married into the Mafia, knowing the risks. Her own father had been a low-level associate before his gambling addiction buried him in debt to the Romanos. She'd grown up around men like Dante, cold, calculating, viewing everything through the lens of power and leverage. But she'd been foolish enough at 25 to believe that maybe, somehow, she could be the exception, that maybe he'd learn to love her. 7 years had beaten that hope into submission. The elevator chimed. Private access, which meant Dante. He never used the main entrance, always the secure elevator that required biometric scanning. Isabella's body tensed automatically, the way it always did when he was near. Even after all this time, his presence filled a room like a physical force. Dante Romano walked into the kitchen, and even exhausted, he commanded attention. 6'3", broad-shouldered, his Italian features sharp and aristocratic. His black suit was immaculate despite whatever violence he'd clearly been orchestrating. At 40 years old, he'd built an empire that made the old bosses nervous. Too smart, too ruthless, too successful. His dark eyes swept over her, assessing. "You heard?" Vincent called. He didn't say what happened. Dante moved to the espresso machine, the only domestic thing he did himself. Control. Everything was about control with him. "One of our warehouses was hit. Professional job. They knew exactly what was in there, when to strike, how to bypass our security, which means someone inside told them. Isabella finished, her mind sharper than he'd ever given her credit for. 7 years of watching and listening had taught her the language of his world. His eyes met hers with something close to surprise. He so rarely looked at her directly. Yes. Do you know who? Working on it. He drank his espresso in one shot, a ritual she'd watched 1,000 times. Until we do, things will be tense. I'm increasing your security detail. 4 men, rotating shifts. You don't go anywhere without them. I'm already a prisoner, Dante. What's a few more guards? The words slipped out before she could stop them. 7 years of silence breaking. His jaw tightened. For a moment, something flickered in those cold eyes. Anger, guilt. It vanished before she could identify it. You're not a prisoner. You're my wife. And in my world, that makes you a target. The security isn't negotiable. Nothing ever is with you. He set down his cup with controlled precision. What's that supposed to mean? Isabella laughed, brittle and sharp. For 7 years, I've been the perfect Mafia wife. I wear the right clothes, smile at the right people, keep your secrets, and ask no questions. I've played my role perfectly, Dante, but let's not pretend I chose this. Let's not pretend I'm anything more than another asset you own. The air between them crackled with 7 years of unspoken frustration. They never fought. Fighting would require caring enough to argue. You knew what this was when you married me. His voice was dangerously quiet. I was 25 and my father's life depended on it. What choice did I have? You're alive. You're safe. You have everything you could want, except a husband who sees me as a human being instead of a debt paid. The words hung in the air like gunshot residue. Dante's face was unreadable, that iron control he'd perfected firmly in place. But Isabella saw his hand tighten on the marble counter, knuckles white. I never promised you love, Isabella. I promised you protection and security. I've kept that promise. Yes, you have. Congratulations on your excellent contract management. She turned away, unable to look at the man who'd had her heart for 7 years and never once acknowledged it. She heard him move toward the elevator, then pause. The security detail starts tonight. Don't fight me on this. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with the rain and the cold comfort of her gilded cage. 3 days passed like a slow bleed. Isabella's new security detail, 4 stone-faced men who treated her like a precious, fragile object, shadowed her every move. Even inside the penthouse, she felt their presence, watching from discreet distances, constant reminders that her world was shrinking. The November cold had settled into New York like an unwelcome guest, turning the rain into sleet that coated the city in ice. From her bedroom window, Isabella watched the park transform into a frozen landscape, beautiful and treacherous in equal measure. She hadn't seen Dante since their confrontation. He'd sent messages through Vincent, brief clinical updates that revealed nothing. Investigation ongoing, stay alert, security remains in place, as if she were a corporate asset to be managed, not a wife who might actually worry about him. On the 4th night, she found herself in his study, a room she'd been told never explicitly forbidden, but understood was off limits. The door had been left unlocked, unusual in a home where security was religion. Maybe exhaustion had made him careless. Maybe, some part of her hoped, he wanted her to find what was inside. The study smelled like him, expensive bourbon and the cedar-scented cologne he wore. His desk was surprisingly sparse for a man who ran a criminal empire. A laptop, a secure phone, and a single photograph in a silver frame. Isabella picked up the frame, her breath catching. The photo was old, faded. A young woman holding a small boy, both laughing at something outside the frame. She recognized Dante immediately. Maybe 7 or 8 years old before the hardness had set into his features. The woman must have been his mother. I was told she was beautiful. Isabella spun around. Dante stood in the doorway, still in his coat, snow dusting his shoulders. He looked exhausted, the kind of tired that came from carrying too much weight for too long. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. She died when I was 10. He walked into the room, movements slower than usual. Cancer. My father. He wasn't equipped to raise a child alone, especially not in this life. He gestured vaguely, encompassing the world they both lived in. He became harder after she died. Taught me that love was a weakness. That sentiment got men killed. It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared with her. In 7 years. Isabella set the photo down carefully. Is that why? She couldn't finish the question. Why I keep you at arm's length? Dante poured himself a bourbon. Neat. His third knuckle was bruised, she noticed. Recent. My father had another wife before he died. He loved her. Actually loved her. Not just kept her like I keep you. His voice was harsh on the words. The Calabresi family found out. Kidnapped her. Sent her back in pieces to prove a point. Isabella's stomach turned. Dante, he was never the same after. The love broke him in ways the violence never could. I watched him become a ghost, going through the motions until a heart attack took him when I was 23. Dante met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw past the ice to the scared boy beneath. So yes, Isabella, this is why. It's not because I don't... He stopped himself, jaw clenched. It's because I can't afford to. Not in this world. So you'd rather we both be ghosts. Living in the same house, never really alive. I'd rather you stay breathing. The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. 7 years, and this was the first moment he'd let her see him, really see him. The warehouse that was hit, she said quietly. It wasn't random, was it? Dante's expression shuttered. No, someone's coming for you. For what you've built? Yes. And you think if they know you care about me, really care, they'll use me to hurt you? His silence was answer enough. Isabella moved closer. Close enough to smell the cold night air clinging to his coat, close enough to see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow she'd never been near enough to notice before. So instead, you keep me locked in this tower, touching everything in your life except me. You think that protects me? It has for 7 years. No, Dante, it's protected you from feeling something that might break your control. She placed her hand over his heart, feeling it hammer beneath the expensive fabric. But you already feel it, don't you? You have for a long time, you're just too afraid to admit it. His hand came up, covering hers, pressing it harder against his chest. The first time he'd touched her with intent in 7 years. His skin was warm, his eyes dark with something that made her breath catch. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, voice rough. How to be a husband and a boss. How to love you without it destroying us both. Then learn, before it's too late. For a moment, one perfect, fragile moment, she thought he might kiss her, might finally bridge the 7-year gap between them. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. Then his phone buzzed, reality crashing back in. Dante stepped back, the walls slamming back into place. I have to go, Vincent needs me at the club. But he paused at the door, looking back at her with something that might have been longing. Lock the bedroom door tonight. Keep your phone close, I mean it. What's happening? I'll tell you when I know for sure, but Isabella... He hesitated, words clearly foreign to him. Be careful. Please? Then he was gone, leaving her in his study with a photo of a dead mother and the ghost of a touch that felt like both a beginning and an ending. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Isabella had been lying awake, Dante's words playing on a loop. She grabbed her phone on the first ring. Mrs. Romano. Vincent's voice was carefully controlled. Too controlled. There's been a development. The boss is... He's handling it. But he asked me to tell you that Marco Salvetti has made a move. Marco Salvetti. She knew that name. One of the 5 families, the Salva organization. Rivals who'd been pushing into Romano territory for years. What kind of move? He's called a sit-down. All the families. Tomorrow night at the Venetian Club. It's a power play. He's claiming the boss has gone soft, that the Romano organization is vulnerable, and Dante has to go. He doesn't have a choice. Refusing would be an admission of weakness, but Mrs. Romano... Vincent paused. Salvetti knows about you. He mentioned you specifically, said the great Dante Romano has been distracted by a pretty face. It's a trap. They want him off balance. Isabella's blood ran cold. Does Dante know? He knows. He's... Another pause. I've never seen him like this, Mrs. Romano. He's always been ice cold in crisis. But tonight, when Salvetti said your name, something changed. He's scared. Not for himself, for you. After hanging up, Isabella couldn't sleep. She stood at the window, watching the city lights blur through cold glass, thinking about a man who'd kept her at arm's length for 7 years to protect her, only to have that very distance used as a weapon against him. Somewhere in the darkness of New York, her husband was preparing for war, and for the first time in their marriage, she wasn't just a bystander. She was the reason for the fight. Dawn was breaking when she heard the elevator. Dante returning. She found him in the living room, still in his coat, staring out at the same view she'd watched all night. "Vincent called me," she said. "He didn't turn around." "Of course he did. Dante, if me being here puts you in danger, don't." His voice was sharp. "Don't finish that sentence. You're not going anywhere. That's exactly what Salvetti wants. To divide us, make me choose between you and my position. I won't give him the satisfaction. But if your own people think you're weak because of me, then I'll prove them wrong." He finally looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. 7 years, Isabella. 7 years I've kept you safe by keeping you distant. And the moment I let myself feel something real, the moment I let my guard down for even a second, the vultures circle. That's my world. That's what I've been protecting you from. I don't need protecting from your world, Dante. I need you to let me into it, to treat me like a partner, not a possession. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. Stop shutting me out and explain. The exhaustion on his face was profound. He sat down heavily on the leather couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. For the first time since she'd known him, Dante Romano looked vulnerable. Isabella sat beside him, close but not touching, waiting. "When I took over from my father," he finally said, "I was 23, too young, too untested. The other families thought I'd be easy to manipulate or eliminate, but I built this empire by being smarter, more ruthless, and never ever showing weakness. No attachments, no vulnerabilities, just business." He looked at her. "Then your father came to me with his debt, and you walked into my office and for the first time I wanted something beyond power. But I couldn't have it, not without making you a target. So I made a choice. I gave you everything except the one thing you wanted. I thought I was being noble, protecting you." His laugh was bitter. "But all I did was make us both miserable and convince men like Salvetti that I'm compromised anyway. So what do we do?" "We?" "You said yourself. They're using me as a weapon against you. That makes this my fight too." Dante studied her face like he was seeing her for the first time. "You've changed. You're not the scared 25-year-old I married. 7 years in a cage teaches you things, like how to pick locks." The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "I have to go to this sit-down. I have to face Salvetti and prove I'm not weak, but Isabella..." He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. The simple intimacy of it made her heart race. "If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen. If it does, Vincent has instructions. Money, protection, everything you need to disappear and start over. You'll be free. I don't want to be free, you idiot. I want you to come home." The words hung between them, raw and true. Dante's thumb traced circles on her palm, the touch achingly gentle. "I've wasted 7 years, he whispered. 7 years of having you here and keeping you away. If I survive tomorrow night, Isabella, things are going to change. I promise you that. You'll survive. You're Dante Romano, you don't know how to lose. I'm learning." His eyes met hers. "I lost 7 years with you. That's the biggest loss of all." He stood, still holding her hand, pulling her up with him. For a moment they stood there in the dawn light, closer than they'd been in 7 years. His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her lips. "After tomorrow," he said quietly, "after I handle Salvetti and secure our position, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to court you, Isabella, the way I should have from the beginning. I'm going to make you fall in love with me, even though I don't deserve it. Dante, I've been in love with you for 5 years. You're late to your own party." His expression, shock, wonder, pain, was worth 7 years of waiting. How did I fall for a man who never touched me, who kept me at arm's length? I watched you, the way you made sure my favorite coffee was always stocked, the way you remembered my mother's birthday and sent flowers, the way you negotiated with your enemies but never raised your voice to me. You thought you were keeping me distant, but you were showing me who you really are. Not the Mafia boss, the man underneath. Isabella. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "Come home alive tomorrow night, Dante, and then we can figure out the rest." He nodded, then did something that shocked her. He pulled her into an embrace, wrapping his arms around her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever held. She felt his heart hammering against her ear, felt the tension in his body, felt 7 years of walls crumbling. "I will," he promised into her hair. "I swear to you I will." But as he pulled away and headed toward the elevator, Isabella couldn't shake the cold feeling settling in her bones. In the Mafia, promises were written in blood, and tomorrow night, one way or another, blood would be spilled. The November evening fell over Manhattan like a sentence being pronounced. From the penthouse, Isabella watched the sun disappear behind the concrete and steel, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded her too much of fire and blood. Dante had been gone since noon, preparing for the sit-down at the Venetian Club, a historic restaurant in Little Italy that had hosted countless such meetings over the decades. Neutral ground, technically. But Isabella knew enough about this world to understand that neutral was just a pretty word for slightly less dangerous. Her security detail had doubled. 8 men now, rotating in shifts, all wearing the same expression of grim determination. Vincent had personally overseen the shift change at 6 p.m., his weathered face tight with concern. Mrs. Romano. He'd approached her in the living room, where she'd been pretending to read the same page of a book for 30 minutes. "The boss wanted me to tell you, whatever happens tonight, he wants you to know he doesn't regret marrying you, that you've been the best part of his life, even if he was too stupid to show it." Vincent, that sounds like a goodbye. It's a precaution. But his eyes told a different story. These sit-downs, they're supposed to be civilized. But Salvetti, he's been pushing boundaries lately, getting aggressive. The boss is walking into a room with 4 other families, all of them looking to see if he's really as strong as his reputation, or if the rumors about him being compromised are true. Because of me. Because of them using you to get to him. There's a difference, Mrs. Romano. Vincent's voice was kind but firm. The boss chose to keep you safe by keeping you separate. That was his decision, his strategy. Salvetti is trying to weaponize that distance, make it look like weakness instead of what it was. Protection. What time is the meeting? 8 p.m. Should be over by 11, maybe midnight. I'll call you the moment I hear anything. Now at 7:45 p.m., Isabella stood at the window with her phone clutched in her hand, watching the city lights blink on like distant stars. Somewhere out there, Dante was preparing to walk into a room where his life, his empire, and possibly their future hung in the balance. She thought about their conversation in the study, about his mother's photograph and his father's broken heart, about a man who'd built walls so high to protect himself and her, only to discover that walls couldn't stop feelings from growing in the cracks. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He's walking in now, all 5 families present, Salvetti sitting opposite, game time. V. Vincent, using a burner phone for additional security. Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to text back to say something, but what? Instead, she just held the phone tighter and waited. The minutes crawled by like hours. 8:15 p.m. Nothing. 8:47 p.m. Still nothing. 9:23 p.m. Isabella was pacing now, wearing a path in the expensive Persian rug, when her phone rang. Vincent's burner number. "Vincent, what's happening?" "It's going south, Mrs. Romano." His voice was tense, urgent. Salvetti accused the boss of stealing shipments, claimed he has proof. He's demanding the boss step down from the commission, turn over territory as compensation. It's a setup, fabricated evidence, fake witnesses. But it's good enough that the other families are wavering. Where's Dante? Defending himself, but Salvetti just played his trump card. He brought up you, said the boss has been distracted by his pretty wife, and that's why the organization has vulnerabilities. He implied that the warehouse hit happened because the boss was too busy playing house to notice the leak. Isabella's blood ran cold. That's not true. We know that. But perception is reality in this world. If the other families believe the boss is compromised, they'll support Salvetti's play. We could lose everything. What can I do? Nothing. Stay there. Stay safe. The boss would kill me himself if anything happened to you. I just thought you should know. This is bad, Mrs. Romano. Really bad. The line went dead. Isabella stood frozen, her mind racing. 7 years of being the dutiful Mafia wife, staying in her lane, asking no questions. 7 years of watching and learning and understanding more about her husband's world than he'd ever realized. And now, when he needed her most, she was supposed to sit here and do nothing. No, not anymore. She grabbed her coat and headed for the elevator. Mrs. Romano, where are you going? Marcus, the head of her security detail, stepped forward. We have strict orders to keep you here. Then you're going to have to stop me physically, because I'm leaving. Ma'am, the boss will have my head. The boss is about to lose everything because men like Salvetti are using me as proof of his weakness. I won't sit here while my marriage becomes the reason his empire falls apart." Marcus and his team exchanged glances. Finally, Marcus sighed. "At least let us come with you. 4 men surrounding you at all times, and if the boss asks, you forced us." "Deal." The Venetian Club sat on Mulberry Street, its red brick facade warm and inviting, a trap disguised as a sanctuary. Isabella's town car pulled up half a block away, Marcus's hand on her arm. "Mrs. Romano, I need to tell you, whatever's happening in there, you can't just walk in. These meetings, they're sacred, inviolable. If you interrupt—" "I know, but I'm not going to interrupt. I just need to be seen." The truth had crystallized during the drive downtown. Salvetti's entire strategy was based on the narrative that Dante Romano's wife was his weakness, a distraction, a vulnerability, proof that he'd gone soft. So Isabella was going to give them a different narrative. She stepped out of the car, her heels clicking on the cold pavement. She'd changed into a black dress, elegant, severe, paired with the diamond necklace Dante had given her on their 2nd anniversary. The one she knew was worth $1 million, purchased from a Russian oligarch who owed the Romano family a favor. She looked like exactly what she was, the wife of a Mafia boss. Powerful, untouchable, an asset, not a weakness. The front entrance was guarded by 2 men built like brick walls. They recognized her immediately. Everyone in this world knew Dante Romano's wife by sight. Mrs. Romano. The larger one, Antonio, looked nervous. "There's a private meeting." "I know. I'm not here to interrupt. I'm here to wait for my husband." She smiled, cold and sharp. "Is there a problem with a wife wanting to be near her husband?" The men exchanged glances. Finally, Antonio opened the door. "The bar area is separate from the private room. You can wait there." "Perfect." The interior of the Venetian Club was old-world elegant. Dark wood, low lighting. The smell of expensive cigars and older money. The bar was indeed separate, but Isabella knew the layout from Dante's descriptions. The private room was visible through a half-open doorway at the far end. She couldn't see much, but she could hear raised voices. She took a seat at the bar where she'd be visible to anyone walking past, ordered a glass of wine she wouldn't drink, and waited. It didn't take long. A man she didn't recognize, younger, expensive suit, the posture of someone who thought he was important, walked past, then stopped. He stared at her, recognition dawning. Then he turned and rushed back toward the private room. 5 minutes later, voices from the private room got louder. She caught fragments. "His wife is here. Bold move. Sending a message." Isabella sipped her wine and didn't look toward the doorway. Let them wonder. Let them see that Mrs. Dante Romano wasn't hiding in her tower, afraid. Let Salvetti explain how a woman confident enough to walk into the lion's den was proof of her husband's weakness. "Mrs. Romano." She turned. Marco Salvetti stood behind her, mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit that couldn't hide the violence in his eyes. She'd seen his photo in Dante's files. Up close, he was more dangerous than she'd imagined. "Mr. Salvetti." She smiled, polite and cold. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "That depends on your definition of important." He moved closer, invading her space deliberately, testing. "Does your husband know you're here?" "My husband is in a meeting. I thought I'd wait for him. Is there a problem?" "No problem, just surprised. In 7 years, you've never shown your face at any of his business dealings." "Perhaps I've decided it's time to be more involved in my husband's affairs." She met his eyes steadily. "After all, what kind of wife would I be if I didn't support him?" Salvetti's expression shifted, just slightly, but Isabella saw it. Uncertainty. She'd thrown him off his script. "Your husband is a lucky man," he said finally, "to have such a devoted wife." "He is, and I'm lucky to have such a powerful husband, a man who builds empires, who commands respect, who keeps his family safe." She emphasized the last words. "That's the kind of man I married, Mr. Salvetti, not someone who can be distracted or weakened, but I'm sure you've already discovered that in your meeting." It was a gamble, speaking this directly to an enemy, but sometimes the only way to change a narrative was to rewrite it in real time. Salvetti studied her for a long moment, then he smiled, thin, sharp. "Indeed, your husband is quite formidable. Please enjoy your wine, Mrs. Romano. I'm sure he'll be finished soon." He walked back toward the private room, But Isabella saw the shift in his body language. She'd rattled him. Not much, but enough. 20 minutes later, the meeting broke up. Men in expensive suits filed out, their expressions ranging from satisfied to confused to angry. Isabella stayed seated, waiting. Then Dante emerged. His eyes found her immediately, and the expression on his face, shock, fear, anger, and something that looked like awe, made her breath catch. He crossed the bar in 3 long strides. "What the hell are you doing here?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Waiting for my husband." She stood, meeting him eye to eye despite their height difference. "Is that not allowed?" "Isabella, did your meeting go well?" Around them she could feel eyes watching, the other family representatives, Salvetti's people, even Dante's own men, all witnessing this moment between the untouchable Mafia boss and the wife he'd kept separate for 7 years. Dante's jaw clenched. She could see him calculating, trying to figure out her angle. Then, slowly, understanding dawned. He took her hand, in public, in front of everyone who mattered in his world, and raised it to his lips. "The meeting went well. Thank you for asking." His eyes held hers, dark and intense. "Shall we go home?" "I'd like that." As they walked toward the exit, Dante's hand at the small of her back, the first time he'd touched her like this in public with real intimacy, Isabella caught Salvetti watching from the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but the calculation in his eyes had been replaced with something else. Respect, grudging and reluctant, but respect nonetheless. In the car, Dante didn't speak until they'd pulled away from the curb. Then he turned to her, his control finally cracking. "That was the most reckless, dangerous, incredibly stupid thing you've ever done." His voice shook. "Do you have any idea what could have happened? Salvetti could have used you as a hostage. The other families could have seen you as leverage. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, because you've spent 7 years building a reputation that makes people afraid to touch what's yours, including me. Isabella, Salvetti's whole strategy was painting me as your weakness, as proof you'd gone soft. So I showed them different. I showed them that your wife isn't some fragile thing you're protecting. I'm a partner who walks into the lion's den if that's what it takes. That's not weakness, Dante, that's strength." He stared at her, emotions warring across his face. Then, without warning, he pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his chest. His heart hammered against her ear, his breath ragged. "Don't ever do that again," he whispered into her hair. "I can't lose you, I can't. Then stop treating me like I'm made of glass." She pulled back to look at him. "I'm stronger than you think. I've had to be, to survive 7 years of loving you from a distance." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." "Isabella, when Salvetti mentioned you in that room, when he implied that you were the reason for my weakness, something broke in me. I realized I'd been lying to myself for 7 years. I kept you away thinking I was protecting you, but really, I was protecting myself. From caring too much, from having something to lose that would destroy me if it was taken away. And now? Now I don't care. I'm terrified, but I don't care. Because these last few days feeling something real with you, even with the danger and the fear, it's been more alive than I've felt in 7 years of being numb." The car pulled up to their building. But instead of getting out, Dante cupped her face with both hands, his eyes searching hers in the dim light. "When we get upstairs," he said quietly, "I want to do this right. I want to court you, take things slow, give you the relationship I should have given you from the start." "Dante, but before that, before we start over," he leaned in, his lips hovering just above hers, giving her every chance to pull away. "I need to do something I should have done 7 years ago." "What's that?" "Kiss my wife." And he did. 7 years of distance, of longing, of unspoken desire, all of it poured into that kiss. His lips were gentle at first, almost reverent, as if she might shatter. But when Isabella's arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer, the restraint broke. The kiss deepened, turned desperate. 7 years of hunger finally unleashed. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "Upstairs," he whispered, voice rough. "We need to get upstairs." "Yes, we do." But as they rode the elevator up, hands intertwined, Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that they'd crossed a line tonight. Not just emotionally, but in the dangerous world Dante inhabited. She'd made herself visible, had shown Salvetti and the other families that she wasn't just the boss's untouchable wife, she was a player in her own right. The question was, what would that cost them? The answer came sooner than she expected. They'd barely made it inside the penthouse when Dante's phone rang, the secure line. His expression went from soft to hard in an instant. Romano. He listened, his free hand tightening on Isabella's. When? How many? His eyes met hers, and she saw fear flash across his features. Lock it down, full protocol, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, already moving toward his study. I have to go. What happened? The warehouse at Red Hook, the one that was hit last week, it's on fire. But that's not the worst part. He pulled out a gun from his desk drawer, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. They found bodies. 4 of them. My men! Oh God, Dante, this is Salvetti's response. To tonight, to you showing up, to me not backing down. He's escalating. He grabbed his coat, then paused, coming back to cup her face. I need you to stay here. Maximum security. Don't open the door for anyone except Vincent, promise me. I promise, but Dante, if this is getting worse, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I will handle it. I will protect you and end this, I swear. He kissed her, hard and desperate. 7 years I kept you safe, I'm not going to fail now. Then he was gone, leaving Isabella alone with the taste of him on her lips and the cold certainty that the war they'd been avoiding for 7 years had finally begun. And this time, staying separated wouldn't save them. The call came at 3:17 a.m. Isabella had been lying in bed, not sleeping, just existing in that hollow space between fear and exhaustion. When her phone lit up with Vincent's number, she answered before the first ring finished. Mrs. Romano. Vincent's voice was strained, carrying sounds of chaos in the background, shouting, sirens, the crackle of fire. The boss is okay, but it was close, too close. What happened? The warehouse was a trap. They were waiting for him. If he hadn't been wearing a vest, Vincent's voice cracked slightly. 4 dead, including Tommy DeLuca. He'd been with us for 15 years. The boss is... he's not handling it well. Isabella's chest tightened. Tommy had been at their wedding. One of the few men Dante actually trusted. Where is he now? Still at the site, watching them load the bodies. Mrs. Romano, I've known the boss for 20 years. I've never seen him like this. The control is slipping. He's about to do something we can't come back from. What do you mean? He's talking about going after Salvetti directly. Tonight. No more rules, no more commission approval. Just blood for blood. If he does that, the other families will have to respond. It'll be all-out war. Isabella was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. I'm coming there. Mrs. Romano, no, it's not safe. Vincent, listen to me. You said he's losing control, that he's about to start a war. I'm the only person who can stop him. You know I'm right. Silence on the other end, then a heavy sigh. The old pier at Red Hook. Come alone. Well, with your security detail, but no one else. And Mrs. Romano? Hurry, please. The November night was bitter cold, the kind that cut through clothes and settled into bones. As Isabella's car approached the Red Hook waterfront, she could see the orange glow of fire against the dark sky, smoke billowing into the night like a funeral shroud. The scene was chaos, fire trucks, police cars that would ask no questions and report no details, and a cluster of black SUVs surrounding the burning warehouse, bodies covered in sheets, men with grim faces and weapons visible under their coats. Marcus, her security chief, pulled the car close to the inner perimeter. Mrs. Romano, I need you to stay in the vehicle until I clear. No time. She was already opening the door, stepping out into the cold and smoke. Around her, Dante's men turned, shock registering on their faces. Mrs. Romano never came to the sites. Mrs. Romano stayed in the tower, separate from the blood and fire. Not anymore. Vincent appeared from the smoke like a ghost, his suit ruined, ash in his hair. Mrs. Romano, thank God, he's over there. He pointed toward the pier, where a lone figure stood at the edge, looking out at the dark water. Dante. Isabella walked toward him, her heels clicking on the concrete, Marcus and 2 others trailing behind. As she got closer, she could see the tension in Dante's shoulders, the way his hands were clenched into fists. He didn't turn, but she knew he'd heard her approach. I told Vincent to keep you home. His voice was flat, empty, the voice of a man who'd shut down every emotion to survive what came next. Vincent knows better than to try to control me. She stepped up beside him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body despite the cold. "Dante, look at me." "I can't." The words were barely audible over the sounds of the fire. "If I look at you right now, if I let myself feel anything beyond rage, I'll break, and I can't afford to break. Not when I need to end this. By going after Salvetti directly. By starting a war that will get more of your men killed. More bodies for their families to bury. He killed Tommy, 4 others. He burned my warehouse and left their bodies to send a message. How am I supposed to respond to that? With restraint, with patience, with strategy, with intelligence, with the same cold calculation that made you one of the 5 families' most feared leaders." Isabella moved to stand in front of him, forcing him to see her. "Don't let him win by turning you into the thing you've always controlled, a man who acts on emotion instead of reason." Finally, he looked at her, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. This wasn't the cold Mafia boss. This was the scared boy who'd lost his mother, who'd watched his father break, who'd built walls so high to protect himself that he'd forgotten how to be human. "I'm so tired, Isabella." The admission was raw, scraping out of him like broken glass. "Tired of the violence, the calculations, the constant chess game where people die when I make the wrong move. I thought I could keep you separate, keep you safe, but tonight proved I was deluding myself. Salvetti will never stop. He'll keep pushing, keep killing, until either he's dead or I am. And if anything happens to you because of this," his voice broke, "I couldn't survive that." "Then don't face it alone." She took his hands, cold, covered in ash and soot, and held them between hers. "You've spent 7 years trying to be strong enough to carry everything yourself. But strength isn't about bearing weight alone, Dante. It's about knowing when to share the burden. I don't know how to do that. Then learn. With me." Around them, she could feel his men watching, witnesses to a moment that would either change everything or break them all. Dante Romano showing weakness in front of his soldiers, but Isabella knew something they were still learning. This wasn't weakness. This was the most dangerous kind of strength, the kind that came from having something worth fighting for beyond power. "What if I can't protect you?" he whispered. "What if I fail?" "You won't, because we're going to be smarter than Salvetti. Together." Something shifted in his expression. Hope, fragile and uncertain, fighting through the rage and grief. "What do you mean?" "I mean that for 7 years I've been watching, listening, learning your world. I know how these games are played, Dante, and I know something about Salvetti that you might have missed." "What?" "He's arrogant. He thinks women are decorative, that I'm just your pretty accessory. That's why he was so shocked when I showed up at the Venetian tonight. It didn't fit his narrative. And arrogant men make mistakes." Dante studied her face, and she could see his tactical mind engaging again, pulling back from the emotional edge. "You have a plan. The beginning of one. But I need you to trust me. Really trust me, not just protect me. Can you do that?" The question hung between them, 7 years of distance and walls crystallizing into a single choice. Finally, Dante nodded. "Tell me." They moved away from the burning warehouse to one of the black SUVs, climbing into the back where they could talk privately. Isabella laid out her thinking while Dante listened, his expression shifting from grief to focus to something that might have been pride. "Salvetti's weakness is his ego," she explained. "He wants to be seen as the one who brought down Dante Romano. He needs the glory, the recognition from the other families. That's why he's escalating so publicly. Burning warehouses, leaving bodies, making spectacles. He wants everyone to know he's responsible. So we use that against him." "Exactly. We give him a target he can't resist, me, but on our terms." Dante's expression immediately darkened. "Absolutely not. You're not making yourself bait." "I'm already bait, Dante. Tonight proved that. Salvetti is using me as a symbol of your weakness, so we flip it. We make me the symbol of your strength. We set up a situation where he thinks he can get to me, embarrass you, prove his point, but it's a trap. And if something goes wrong, then we'll handle it. Together." She took his hand. "You need to stop trying to fight this war alone. Let me help. Let your wife be your partner, not your liability." He was silent for a long moment, clearly at war with every instinct he'd honed over 7 years. Finally, he squeezed her hand. "Okay, but we do this my way. Full security, backup plans, and at the first sign of real danger, you're out. Understood?" "Understood." Vincent appeared at the window, and Dante rolled it down. "Get everyone to the safe house. I want a full debrief in 3 hours. And Vincent, Send word to Salvetti. Tell him I want to meet. Just him and me tomorrow night. Vincent's eyebrows rose. Boss, are you sure? Tell him I'm ready to discuss terms, that I'm willing to make concessions to end this. Let him think tonight broke me. Understanding dawned on Vincent's weathered face. He nodded and disappeared into the smoke. Dante turned back to Isabella. This is dangerous. Once we start this play, there's no going back. I know, but sitting in that tower waiting for news while you fight this war alone, that's more dangerous, to both of us. When did you get so brave? About 7 years ago, when I married a man who terrified me and intrigued me in equal measure. I've been finding my courage slowly, piece by piece. Tonight just happens to be the night I put it all together. Dante pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. They sat like that for a moment, breathing together, finding stability in each other while the world burned around them. I love you, he whispered. I should have said it 7 years ago. I should have said it every day since. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Isabella. So much it terrifies me. I love you too. Even when you were keeping me away, even when I thought I'd spend forever loving you from a distance, I loved you. I've wasted so much time. Then let's not waste any more. He kissed her, gentle and desperate all at once. A promise and a plea, wrapped into one moment. When they pulled apart, the Mafia boss was back, controlled, calculating, dangerous. But now Isabella could see the man underneath, and that made all the difference. The next 24 hours were a blur of planning, preparation, and carefully orchestrated messages. Dante played his role perfectly, the shaken boss, making overtures for peace, showing weakness to draw Salvetti in, and Salvetti predictably took the bait. The meet was set for the following night at a restaurant in Midtown, public enough to seem safe, private enough for real conversation. Isabella would be there, sitting at a nearby table with 2 of her security team, visible but separate, the trap within the trap. As evening fell and the time approached, Isabella dressed carefully, not the severe black dress from the Venetian, but something softer, a deep blue that Dante had once mentioned he liked. She was playing a role, the beautiful wife, the boss's weakness. Let Salvetti see what he expected to see. Dante appeared in the doorway of their bedroom now, not separate wings. They'd spent the last night together, not physically intimate, but closer than they'd been in 7 years, learning to share space, to be vulnerable with each other. You look beautiful, he said softly. Too beautiful for what we're about to do. That's the point. She turned to face him. Ready? No, but we're doing this anyway. He crossed to her, taking her hands. Isabella, if anything happens, nothing's going to happen. You've planned this perfectly. We've planned this perfectly. I know, but just in case, I need you to know that these last few days, finally letting myself be with you, they've been the best of my life. Whatever happens tonight, I don't regret any of it. Neither do I. He kissed her, slow and thorough, memorizing the taste and feel of her. Then he stepped back, the mask of the Mafia boss sliding into place. Let's go finish this. The restaurant was elegant and understated, the kind of place where power brokers made deals over $50 steaks. Isabella's table was tucked into an alcove with a clear view of where Dante and Salvetti would sit. Marcus and James, her security, flanked her, looking like bodyguards but armed with more than just protection. Dante arrived first, his movements controlled, his expression carefully neutral. He took his seat, ordered a whiskey, and waited. Salvetti arrived 10 minutes later with his own security detail, a power play making the boss wait. He sat across from Dante, all confidence and smug satisfaction. From her position, Isabella could only catch fragments of conversation, but body language told the story. Salvetti leaning back, expansive and controlling. Dante hunched forward slightly, defensive, playing his role. Salvetti's hand gestures grew more animated, making his demands, outlining his terms. Dante nodded occasionally, looking beaten down. The perfect performance. Then Salvetti's eyes drifted to Isabella's table. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by cruel amusement. He said something to Dante. She saw her husband's jaw tighten. Then Salvetti stood. He walked toward her table. Mrs. Romano. His voice was oily, satisfied. What a surprise to see you here. Does your husband know you're watching his surrender? Isabella smiled, cold and sharp. Surrender? Is that what you think this is? What else would you call it? He's agreeing to my terms, stepping back from prime territory, admitting he's been distracted. Salvetti's eyes raked over her dismissively. I have to say, you're lovely, but hardly worth destroying an empire over. You're right about one thing, Mr. Salvetti. My husband has been distracted. For 7 years he's been so busy keeping me separate, keeping me safe, that he forgot something important. What's that? Isabella stood, close enough now that Salvetti had to look up at her. That I'm not just his wife, I'm his partner, and partners share information. Confusion flickered across Salvetti's face. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that for the last 3 months, you've been working with someone inside the Romano organization. Someone feeding you information, helping you plan attacks, setting up my husband to fall. Salvetti's expression shifted, just slightly, but enough. I don't know what you... His name is Carlo Messina, your nephew, who's been working as one of my husband's warehouse managers for 2 years. The one who told you when shipments were coming in, where vulnerabilities were, when to strike. Isabella leaned in. Did you really think we wouldn't figure it out? The color drained from Salvetti's face. Behind him she saw Dante stand, Vincent and 4 other men materializing from positions around the restaurant, the trap springing shut. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Salvetti. Dante's voice was cold as death. You're going to call off whatever plans you have against my organization. You're going to compensate the families of the men you killed. And you're going to explain to the commission why your nephew was acting as a mole, violating the rules we all agreed to. You have no proof. We have everything. Documents, recorded conversations, testimony from 3 other members of your organization who've decided their loyalty to the families outweighs their loyalty to a boss who breaks the rules. Dante moved closer, and the menace in his posture made Salvetti step back. You wanted to prove I was weak, that my wife made me vulnerable. But what you failed to understand is that she makes me stronger, smarter, because while you were busy looking at her as my weakness, she was busy digging up every piece of evidence that's about to end you. Isabella had spent the last 24 hours doing exactly that, using her 7 years of observation, her understanding of Dante's world, and her access to documents and conversations to piece together the evidence they needed. Carlo Messina had been careful, but not careful enough. Not when someone was actually looking. The commission meets tomorrow, Vincent added, stepping forward. They'll be very interested to hear about a boss who broke the rules, planted a mole, and violated protocol. I'm guessing you won't be walking out of that meeting in charge of your family. Salvetti looked between them all, his arrogance crumbling into panic. This was supposed to be a simple meet. You gave your word. I said I wanted to discuss terms. Dante smiled, sharp and dangerous. I never said they'd be your terms. Now you have a choice. Accept our conditions, face the commission, and maybe you walk away with your life, or refuse, and we show the other families exactly how you've been conducting business. Either way, you lose. The silence stretched out, thick with tension. Finally, Salvetti nodded, his shoulders slumping. Fine. Your terms. Good. Dante gestured, and 2 of his men stepped forward to escort Salvetti out. Vincent will handle the details. And Mr. Salvetti, if I find out you've touched anything or anyone connected to me, especially my wife, there won't be a commission meeting. There will just be a funeral. Yours. After Salvetti and his men were gone, the restaurant slowly returned to normal, other diners carefully not looking at the scene that had just played out. Dante crossed to Isabella's table, his expression unreadable. Then he took her hand and pulled her to her feet, his arms wrapping around her in front of everyone. You're insane, he whispered into her hair, and brilliant, and terrifying, and I'm so in love with you I can barely breathe. Is it over? She asked against his chest. Not completely. The commission still has to rule, and there will be fallout. But the immediate threat is done. Salvetti is finished. He pulled back to look at her. You did that. You found the evidence, built the case, handed me exactly what I needed to end this without more bloodshed. We did that. Together. Together, he agreed, the word sounding like a revelation on his lips. They returned to the penthouse as the city lights sparkled against the night sky. The security detail took up positions. Vincent coordinated with the other families, and slowly, the machinery of Dante's world spun down from crisis mode. But Dante and Isabella barely noticed. They stood in the living room where, days ago, he'd told her about his mother and his father's broken heart. So much had changed in such a short time. I should shower, Dante said, though he made no move to leave. I'm covered in soot and smoke and probably blood. Probably. Isabella stepped closer. But first, I need to tell you something. What's that? For 7 years, I've been patient. I've been understanding. I've played the role of the distant wife because I loved you enough to accept whatever pieces of you I could have. She placed her hand over his heart, feeling it hammer beneath her palm. But I'm done with patience, Dante. I'm done with distance. I want all of you. Not just your protection or your name or your money. I want you. The man underneath the boss, the boy who lost his mother. The husband who's been too afraid to be a husband. I want everything you've been holding back for 7 years. Dante's breath caught, his eyes darkening with an intensity that made her pulse race. Isabella, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to go shower, and then you're going to come back to our bedroom. Our bedroom, not separate wings, not separate lives. And we're going to start this marriage the way it should have started 7 years ago. Are you sure? His voice was rough. Once we cross that line, we already crossed it. The moment you kissed me in the car, the moment I walked into the Venetian club, the moment we decided to face Salvetti together instead of apart. All that's left is to stop pretending we're anything other than what we've always been. Two people who love each other and have wasted too much time being afraid. For a long moment, Dante just stared at her, emotions warring across his face. Then he cupped her face in both hands, his touch reverent. I don't deserve you. You've said that before. I'm choosing to ignore it again. He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. Then he kissed her, soft at first, then deeper, 7 years of longing pouring into that single moment. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Give me 20 minutes, he said. And Isabella, when I come back, we're doing this right. No more running, no more walls. Just us. Just us, she agreed. 20 minutes later, when Dante emerged from his bathroom wearing just sleep pants, his hair still damp, his guard finally down, Isabella was waiting. She'd changed into a simple silk nightgown, had dimmed the lights, had prepared herself for this moment she'd dreamed about for 7 years. But when he appeared in the doorway, all her preparation fled. Because this wasn't the cold Mafia boss. This wasn't the man who kept everyone at arm's length. This was just Dante, vulnerable, uncertain, and looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Isabella. He crossed the room slowly like he was afraid she might disappear. I need to tell you something before this goes any further. Okay. I'm scared. The admission was raw, honest. For 7 years, I've controlled everything in my life. Every decision, every emotion, every interaction. But with you, I can't control this. I can't control how much I want you. How much I need you, how terrified I am that I'll fail you or lose you, or somehow ruin this. He knelt beside the bed where she sat, taking her hands. I've built empires and faced down enemies and survived things that would break most men, but the thought of not being enough for you, that terrifies me more than anything else ever has. Isabella slid off the bed to kneel with him, their faces level, her hands framing his face. Dante Romano, for 7 years, I've watched you be enough for everyone else. You've protected your people, built your empire, kept your promises, but you've never let yourself just be. Not with me, not with anyone. She kissed him softly. Tonight, you don't have to be the boss. You don't have to be strong or in control or perfect. You just have to be here, with me. That's all I've ever wanted. I don't know how to do that. Then we'll figure it out together. She smiled. We seem to be good at that. He kissed her then, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. 7 years of walls crumbled as he pulled her close, his hands sliding into her hair, his mouth desperate on hers. They kissed like they were drowning, and each other was air. Like 7 years of distance had created a hunger that couldn't be satisfied with anything less than everything. Bed, he murmured against her lips. We should. Bed. She laughed, the sound breathless, eloquent. You destroyed my eloquence about 5 seconds into that kiss. He lifted her effortlessly despite her protests and carried her to the bed, laying her down gently. For a moment, he just looked at her, his expression so open, so full of love and desire and fear that her breath caught. 7 years, he whispered, his hand tracing the line of her jaw, her neck, her shoulder. 7 years of having you this close and never touching, never knowing. I'm going to make up for every single one of those nights, Isabella, starting now. Dante, shh, let me do this. Let me show you everything I've been too afraid to say. And he did. With hands that shook slightly, with kisses that ranged from achingly gentle to desperately hungry, he showed her everything he'd held back, not just physical desire, though that was there, fierce and overwhelming, but tenderness, reverence. 7 years of unspoken love, finally finding expression. When he finally moved over her, his weight a welcome pressure, his eyes locked on hers, he paused. "Tell me you want this. Tell me you're sure." "I've been sure since the day I married you. I've just been waiting for you to catch up. I'm sorry it took so long." "Don't be sorry." She pulled him down, her lips against his ear. "Just love me, finally. Please." The word, please, broke something in him. The last of his control shattered, and he kissed her like he was claiming her, like he was finally allowing himself to have what he'd wanted for 7 years. When they finally came together, when 7 years of distance was bridged in one perfect moment, Isabella heard him make a sound that was half groan, half sob. "I love you," he gasped against her neck. "God, Isabella, I love you so much." "Show me," she whispered back. "Show me everything." And he did. Hours later, as dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Isabella lay wrapped in Dante's arms, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. They'd made love twice more through the night, once slow and tender, once desperate and fierce, learning each other's bodies the way they'd been learning each other's hearts over the last few days. "I can't believe I wasted 7 years, Dante murmured into her hair. 7 years of having you here and keeping you away. "We didn't waste them. We just took the long way to get here. I'm never letting you go again, you know that, right?" He tightened his arms around her. "Separate wings, separate lives, that's over. From now on, you're stuck with me. Every night, every morning, every moment, I'm not handling business." "Good, because I'm not letting you run away again." She propped herself up to look at him. "We're partners now. In everything." "In everything," he agreed. Then his expression grew serious. "Isabella, what you did, finding the evidence on Salvetti, building the case, that was brilliant and dangerous. You put yourself in his crosshairs. I was already there. I just decided to do something about it instead of hiding. You're incredible and terrifying, and I'm so grateful you're mine." "Yours," she echoed, the word feeling right. "For better or worse. For real this time. For real," he promised. They lay in comfortable silence, watching the sunrise paint their city in gold. Outside, New York was waking up, cars honking, people rushing to work, the eternal rhythm of the city that never slept. But inside their penthouse, their world had shifted completely. "What happens now?" Isabella asked. "With the commission, with Salvetti, with your organization?" "Now we rebuild. The commission will rule in our favor. The evidence is too solid. Salvetti will be removed, probably forced into retirement. His territory will be divided among the other families, and the Romano organization will be stronger than ever." He paused. "And you'll be beside me. Not hidden away, not protected from my world, but actually with me, my wife, my partner, if you want that." "Want it? Dante? I've been trying to get there for 7 years." He laughed, the sound free and genuine in a way she'd never heard before. "I really am an idiot." "Yes, but you're my idiot." "I love you," he said again, like he couldn't say it enough times, like he was making up for 7 years of silence. "I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you too." She kissed him, soft and sweet, now and always. Outside, the city roared to life, but inside, in the warmth of their bed, wrapped in each other's arms, Dante and Isabella Romano finally had what they'd been denied for 7 years. Each other. Not a contract. Not an arrangement. Not a debt paid or a sacrifice made. Just love. Real, messy, terrifying, beautiful love. And it was worth every moment of waiting. 6 months later, the charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art was in full swing. New York's elite mingling under priceless art, champagne flowing, donations climbing into the millions. Isabella moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her emerald dress drawing appreciative looks, the Romano name opening doors and conversations. But the biggest change wasn't her dress or her confidence, or even the way she commanded a room. It was the man at her side. Dante's hand rested on the small of her back, not possessively, but intimately. He introduced her not as my wife, but as my partner, Isabella. When she spoke, he listened with genuine interest. When she had ideas about the foundation they'd started together, helping families affected by violence on both sides of the law, He treated her input with respect. They'd become what they'd always been meant to be, partners in every sense. "You look happy," Vincent observed, appearing beside them with glasses of champagne. At 72, he was considering retirement finally, especially now that the Romano organization was stable, thriving and, thanks to Isabella's influence, gradually shifting toward more legitimate operations. "I am happy," Dante admitted. He looked at his wife, and the love in his eyes was so obvious that several people nearby smiled. "For the first time in my life, I'm actually happy." "Took you long enough," Vincent grumbled, but he was smiling. "Better late than never," Isabella added. Later, as they slow danced under the museum's soaring ceilings, Dante pulled her close. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For waiting 7 years for me to pull my head out of my ass. For showing me that love isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing we have." "You're welcome. Though technically you should also thank Marco Salvetti." Dante laughed. "How do you figure? If he hadn't pushed us, hadn't forced the crisis, we might have gone on for another 7 years in our separate wings. Sometimes it takes almost losing everything to realize what you actually have." "True." He kissed her forehead. "Though I prefer to think of it as you refusing to let me be an idiot anymore." "That too." They swayed together, comfortable in the silence, secure in what they'd built. Outside the museum, the city sparkled. Their city, their empire, their life. Not perfect, not without danger or challenges, but theirs, together. "I have a surprise for you," Dante said suddenly. "Oh?" "I bought a house in Connecticut, near the water. Nothing huge, just 5 bedrooms, a library, a garden. Somewhere we can go when we need to get away from the city, from the business, from everything. Somewhere that's just ours." Isabella's eyes widened. "Dante, I know you love the penthouse, and we'll keep it. But I wanted to give you something more. A place where you can paint. Yes, I know you want to paint again, even though you haven't mentioned it. A place where we can just be Dante and Isabella, not the boss and his wife. A place to build a life that's about us, not about my empire. When did you become such a romantic? When my brilliant wife taught me that loving someone doesn't make you weak, it makes you human, and being human is actually pretty great." She kissed him, deep and true, not caring that they were in public, that his associates were watching, that this would be talked about tomorrow. Let them talk. Let everyone see that the great Dante Romano loved his wife. It was the truest thing about him. "So?" he asked when they pulled apart. "What do you think about the house?" "I think it's perfect. I think you're perfect. Well, not perfect. You still leave your socks on the bathroom floor, and you're dangerously overprotective, and you run a criminal empire, so there are some flaws. Some. But you're perfect for me, and I wouldn't change a single thing about you. Not even the 7 years of being an idiot. Not even that. Because all of it, the distance, the waiting, the fear, all of it brought us here. To this moment, where we're finally really married, finally really partners, finally really us. I love you, Isabella Romano. I love you too, Dante Romano." They danced through the rest of the song and the next and the one after that. Outside, the November night was cold, but inside, wrapped in each other's arms, they were warm. Together, finally, irrevocably together. 7 years of distance. 7 years of walls. 7 years of a marriage that was supposed to be a contract, nothing more. But love had other plans. And in the end, love won. It always does. The end.